it's like Stockholm syndrome. Like we've been kidnapped, but we love our kidnappers. No, but in all seriousness, no, listen, it's the best business in the world, but it's also the toughest business in the world. And like what attracted me and what's kept me here is the only, like I was a kid growing up playing sports, right? What kid does not want to be a professional athlete, right? So, growing up in Canada, whether it was hockey, soccer, basketball, like I played them all, and I would have loved to have done that professionally. But there was also a part of me growing up watching Michael J. Fox play Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties. I kind of wanted to wear a suit and go into an office every day. That was also part of my dream.
All right, well, we are talking Hidden Treasures today, official podcast of Hunting Hidden Treasures, our reality show here. We've got Shawn Khunkhun here. He runs Dolly Varden Silver, and he also is a Strike Point here. I believe you were appointed executive chairman here, Shawn, so congratulations on that. But Shawn's been in the game 15 plus years here, capital market side, all in the mineral exploration. So Shawn, I appreciate you being on here, and let's talk some hidden treasures, because that's what you do.
That's right. Thanks for having me on. And it's going to be almost 19 years come May that I've been doing this. Got started young, just before my 23rd birthday. And it was a pretty tough market back then. I remember it was 04, and Rob, we only had one good day. Like really, it was like a dead, quiet, metal prices were down. But there was this one day, and it wasn't gold or silver. It was actually uranium was flying, and I just remember that all I needed as this young 20-year-old, I needed this one day of electricity, this one day where the market went boom. I'll never forget. There was a news release that came out. Newmont was putting $100 million into a company called Shore Gold. I think they had made a diamond discovery, and that's something you're going to find as a treasure hunter. You're going to say, "Hey, we're Diamond Fields, but we just found the largest nickel deposit." Or you go looking for one thing and you end up finding another. But I just remember as this 20-year-old kid seeing $100 million. I'd never seen numbers like that, and the market went crazy, and my stock doubled that day, and I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked.
Yeah. So being in this business, it's a tough business here. So I would have to imagine you have some sort of emotional attachment to it, possibly monetary or not. But what thesis have you developed here as far as being in this particular game and sector?
I think it's like I was joking with a buddy the other day. It's like Stockholm syndrome. Like we've been kidnapped, but we love our kidnappers. No, but in all seriousness, no, listen, it's the best business in the world, but it's also the toughest business in the world. And like what attracted me and what's kept me here is the only, like I was a kid growing up playing sports, right? What kid does not want to be a professional athlete, right? So, growing up in Canada, whether it was hockey, soccer, basketball, like I played them all, and I would have loved to have done that professionally. But there was also a part of me growing up watching Michael J. Fox play Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties. I kind of wanted to wear a suit and go into an office every day. And that was also part of my dream. And so I'm actually living my dream. And the reason I love the commodity business is we're in a business where these projects, Rob, are sometimes seen as liabilities, right? So sometimes you can get a company that will actually pay you to take a project. I'll give you an example. So I'm here in Vancouver, BC, and we've got an area called the Golden Triangle. And there was a company a few years back that paid Seabridge to take the Red Mountain deposit. They paid them. Take this deposit, 1 million ounces of gold, take it. And I can't remember what they paid him. Maybe they paid him 50 grand. Here's the deposit, take it, it's a liability. And then a few years later, Seabridge sold that project to a company called IDM Mining. IDM paid them, I don't know what the number was, $4 or $5 million, but they got $4 or $5 million for something they were paid to take. And then a few years later, IDM sells that project to Ascot for $50 million. And so those are small numbers, like in the sense that, we're in a business where you can make a discovery and sell it for $1 billion but the point is, for me, unlike other disruptive industries like tech or biotech, where you're doing very good work, you're looking for the cure for cancer, you're coming up with these disruptive technologies that make the world a better place. I feel like with mining, whether it's copper, silver, gold, you find a copper deposit in Canada, nobody's going to make that thing irrelevant. Whereas a technology, something else can come along and disrupt that. And so I don't know, mining is like agriculture. We're going to have it forever, right? And so I actually, now that I'm a little bit older and a little bit wiser than I was at 20, I actually view this as I have a great responsibility to develop these projects in the right way, and the world needs it. And anyway, so it's I have a real passion, and I'm got a great team around me. So
yeah, it's an exciting business, as you mentioned there, and maybe not as much of a field guy as some of your real prospectors out there and your VPXs and such. But yeah, give us some fun tales about when you do take the suit off and you have been out there in the bush a little bit there. Give those treasure hunters a little feel of how tough it can get.
Well, listen, I'm a runner. Right. I'm a soccer player. I'm a runner. So, you put me out in the field and I love it because, I love, rolling up my sleeves. And I was just up in the Yukon last week, and I was kicking rocks on a property, and it was a copper property. And what was great about it was gold and silver is sometimes hard to find for a guy like me who's not technically trained and doesn't have an eye for this stuff. But copper's pretty easy to see, right? So I've got some silver rocks that look like that as well. But no, cool field stories. I'll save those for a beer one day, Rob, because some of them are, they'll make your hair stand up. I don't know if they're
a little hairy. You mentioned about obviously where you're working at there, Shawn, up in the Golden Triangle. So yeah, let's paint a picture here on a little bit of the history of the area, what it's produced, and why you're there now.
Okay, that's a good question. Actually, if we just talk about Dolly Varden for a second, it was the 15th president of the United States, Herbert Hoover, who was a tremendous mining engineer, was actually the gentleman that opened the Dolly Varden Silver Mine in 1919. So that's a cool piece of history. This project goes back to early 1900s. But if we look at the whole area, it came to be around the time of the Klondike Gold Rush, and it's produced for over 100 years, and it'll produce for the next 100 years. So it's been subject to $5 billion in mergers and acquisitions since 2018, which is a pretty big number if you consider a lot of the companies that are operating up there are measured in the tens of millions. Like when I took over Dolly was a $20 million company, and we're in a neighborhood where it's think of housing, right? Where if you go back 50 years where you're from, what could you buy a house for? What's a house going for today? It's the same thing that's played out in the mining industry. And really the way the big companies are planning, and it's not just the big companies, Newcrest, Newmont, it's also, we've got something pretty special where we have our indigenous partners, and in our case, it's the Nisga'a. They're very sophisticated mining group that, they're planning for the next 100 years, just like the mining companies are. So we have some good certainty. There's some of the biggest and richest deposits in the world are up there, like Bruce Jack, Esky Creek, Premier. So it's a special area where the mineralizing events were big. So some of the biggest deposits in the world. Actually, I got something for you here. There's 20 kilometers. If you drew a 20-kilometer circle around KSM Bruce Jack, it's the richest 20 kilometers on the planet for gold and silver.
Wow. That's a good one. That's a reason enough to I guess be there. So yeah, so let's talk about when you get into this treasure and when you've established your area and jurisdiction, you're comfy here. Talk about the permitting side and then talk about community relations, how important it is to really have those relationships like you talked about, or you guys flat out aren't in business.
But listen, I hate wearing a tie. Okay, the reason I'm wearing a tie today is because the Honorable Bruce Ralston, who's our Minister of Energy, Mines, and Low Carbon, was just in the office about an hour ago. And he came in to say, hey, I hear Dolly Varden is this up and coming company, and we should get to know you guys because we hear you guys are doing things. And we didn't reach out to him. He reached out to us. And that, I think that one example kind of tells you the area that we're operating in. I always tell this story. It's because for me, it's like the Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner, the movie, right? It's if you build it, they will come. And that's what the BC government's done. They brought in the infrastructure. They brought in the roads. They brought in the Northwest Transmission Line, which brought power to Bruce Jack. They brought in all that stuff, Deepwater Seaport. They spent billions. And it's worked. Like Newcrest has come, Newmont's come, Tech's there, and little companies like me have a chance because my drill costs rival Nevada because of the access and the infrastructure. So permitting's great. It's as long as you respect water and you respect the local communities, you get a permit.
Yeah. Well, let's get down to it here and then dig into your project here, the Kitsault Valley project, and you're in a special place as you just outlined. So I guess to dig into what attracted you to
that. Jealousy and envy attracted me. I was drilling a property just north of Dolly in 2018, and we were hitting some good numbers like 5 meters, 800 grams. And then Dolly Varden, they were coming up with like big intercepts, like 50, 60, 40, 50, 60 meters of 3, 4, 500 grams of silver. And I just thought, man, if I had that, I could really do something. And so I got to start to know the company. I got to know the bankers, the board, and next thing I know, they're asking me to take over the company and run it. And what attracted me was it's got grade. It's located in a safe, stable country. It's, we're not in the DRC or, we're not, in some gnarly place, right? This is a place that I'd take my kids, right? This is a place that's safe. It's got stable government. But where I've had a little bit of sort of luck, good timing, and fortune is the silver price woke up right after I took over. And I was fortunate to find some really good shareholders like Hecla and Eric Sprott that, they're in this for like a long-term vision. And there's alignment there. And they're giving me time to actually build a business, build a company. And then we got really lucky in that there was this deposit sitting next door, and the guys that owned it have entrusted us to run with it. So we tripled our resource by bringing in this acquisition. And so not only did the mineral inventory triple, but it's opened up big exploration corridors. So if you look at some of the news releases we've been putting out, we're hitting all over the place because now we've got this nice, big consolidated land package. So good timing, good people. I'm lucky. I work with like a really smart group of scientists that they're like the best professionals in the world. Like I've got the best exploration team in the business. And like, this is like, I look at it like I coach my kids' soccer teams, right? I got a 13-year-old, I got a 10-year-old, and I coach. And there's no difference for what I'm doing on the field there, where I'm not going to make these geologists better. Like I'm not going to make, you go coach Cristiano Ronaldo in soccer or, Wayne Gretzky in hockey. You're not going to make them better, right? But what you can do as a coach is you can put the right pieces together. You can bring in, a Bob Probert or a Marty McSorley to protect your players, right? You can bring in, and so that's what we've done here. We've brought in a complementary group of people, and what the result is, Rob, is at a time where our peers are flat or down, we've grown, right? And we're doing okay, right? And we're doing okay relative to our peers, and it's because function of great project, certainty of support of the locals and the government, good shareholder. Like, you need all those things. You need all the stars to line up. And then this is a business where it's like horse racing, or it's like, where you let your winners, when it's working. Like, you take a Great Bear Resources, which they'll write books about Great Bear. Great Bear went from 15 cents to $30, and it was acquired for $1.8 billion. When you have something that's working in mining, you let your winners run. It's like, being an Amazon shareholder 20 years ago. You stick with it. And this is a time where, we've grown a little bit. We're like that little baby that's now an infant, but this one's going to go on into become a senior, and you wanna ride it.
Yeah. So I guess your neighbor moves in here, and he wonders what you do, and he puts a little money in there with Shawn Dolly Varden to go treasure hunting. What's the end game to get your neighbor there further ahead?
So I look at Hecla, and Hecla produces half the silver that gets produced in America is produced by Hecla. And with their recent acquisition of Keno Hill in the Yukon, half the silver that's going to get produced in Canada is going to get produced by Hecla. So let's ask ourselves, why is Hecla the best performing silver stock in the last 3 years? They've got domestic silver, safe silver, in a world where, you've got wars going off, currency wars, real wars. You've got how important is safety and security and stability, certainty. And so I like Hecla. I think Phil Baker is doing a phenomenal job. And I believe that's a company that will be on the S&P 500 one day. And so if you're a large mining company, you're depleting mineral inventory every day you go to work. And so I would love to put Dolly Varden into a portfolio of other assets that are producing, developing, growing through exploration. And so at the right time, I would be very supportive of partnering with a larger entity. But I think right now our best bet is to keep drilling, keep hitting. We've gone from a $20 million market cap to 150. We've gone from a share price of 24 cents to 60 cents. I'd love to see the stock go up another 10x and market cap to grow another 3 or 4 times. And, and then at that point, and again, we're doing this all where, look, I got into silver because in the 2000s, when gold went, I was part of a gold company that went from 7 cents to $5. It went from a nothing market cap to a $1.4 billion valuation. I made more money on a passive silver investment than I did helping to build a gold mining company where we had 600 employees. And it was tough. It was really, really hard. We had to raise hundreds of millions of dollars. It was tough. And the gold price had to go from 300 to 1900 just to make it happen. So my lesson was, the next time I thought gold was going to go, I was going to go all in on silver. And so the reason I got behind Dolly was I learned and I studied and I witnessed from the last cycle that silver's rare. It's even rarer to get it in a safe place. And so I think that, look, I've done sensitivity studies around what happens if silver goes to $25. Well, shoot, it was just at $30 back in January of 2021. And so now that we've tripled the resource, and we're starting to see silver go from 18 to 21 and a half here, it's going to be really interesting if silver breaks out. And again, for your viewers probably know this, but it's the only metal. It's one of the only asset classes that haven't taken out its 1980 high of $50 an ounce. It will. And when it does, what are these projects worth? They're worth a lot more than they are today. So I just think, look, I'm here for silver, but we've also got a lot of gold. Half our deposit is gold. And, gold's doing quite well the last couple of sessions. And I think it's based on all this money printing, and there's a lot of fundamentals that are supportive of the gold price, but there is no substitute to silver. And I do believe that, silver and copper are the future. So we've got gold, which protects you in inflation, deflation, and we've got silver, and there's no substitute for silver. So this is a special project. If we play our cards right, we're going to get a big number here in terms of share price.
Yeah, let's get into playing your cards right, and how are you playing those cards now? Get into current day activity, or how things are going.
Well, I think in order to tell you that, I need to just give you a snapshot of how we played our cards to get us here. And I think what we did is when the silver price ran, we filled our treasury, and we did it in a non-dilutive way. We raised a lot of money, like $45 million, and we raised it at prices that were 3 times higher than when I took over the company. And so we did that. So we had treasury with the right investors. It's not just about raising money. It's about raising money with people that are aligned with what you're trying to do, so they give you time to do it. They're not selling. And so we've got an end user of the product, a company that produces the stuff. We've got Eric Sprott. We've got 45% were held by institutions, sophisticated investors. We've got a team that has made a career of doing this. So we got the people, we got the money. We transformed the company with an acquisition. So we did some regional consolidation. We made ourselves bigger by buying up the right pieces in the neighborhood. And now the last component is we're drilling, and we're putting out results, and we're growing. So continue to do what got you here. We're showing the project to companies, to investors. We're showing it to smart scientists, or we're bringing in, there's no expense spared when it comes to studies. So like my geos have everything under the sun in order to produce the best results. And that's why and now through the studying of all the historic information and all this recent drilling, we've got this new model. So I'll leave you with this. So I used to talk a lot about what we are. We're 140 million ounces of silver. That's what we are. That's what we know. But what's feeding those 7 deposits? Well, those 7 deposits are, in a way, insignificant. They're just fractures on this axial plane. Can we tag into the palm of those deposits? Right? So these deposits are coming up to surface, and we're building up some tonnage on them. Fantastic. And that's equated to 140 million ounces of silver. But what if we tag the palm? What's the tonnage and grade potential? Could we go to 1 billion ounces of silver? Right? And so we're coming up with a model, Rob, that is going to allow us to test that thesis. And if we're successful, it's game over. It's lights out. If we're not, we've still got something that's very, very valuable here.
Yeah, walk us through the next 3 to 6 months here, and how will it be going by then? Do you think you should have a better market? I would have to believe, but that's out of your control. But as far as the work goes,
so we've done a lot of work. We drilled over 108 holes, 37,000 meters. We've put out about half the results. We've got lots of news to get out over the next couple of months. I anticipate going into January still reporting drill results. And then we'll take a step back and what does it all mean? How much have we grown? Maybe we think about a new resource estimate. Maybe we put some economics around it in the form of a PEA. But the bottom line here is the market's going to reward us if we continue to grow the deposit. The market's going to reward us if the silver and gold price continues to move up, because we have a lot of silver and gold in the ground. And ultimately, where the market will really reward us is if a larger entity comes in and buys us, because typically those deals get done at a premium. So those are some potential catalysts in the coming months.
So, yeah, I guess let's wrap up here with one final message to those who are already treasure hunting with you, or those who might want to take a shot with Shawn Khunkhun and team there. Give a little direction here, and why would they want to be involved with you, Shawn?
Well, look, if you're looking around the world right now and, you're seeing, your bills go up at the grocery store, or, maybe it's at the gas station, and you're looking and saying, well, how do I protect myself? I think traditionally gold and silver have been a way where, they could be your they can be your safe harbor, right? So I think, start with some gold and silver, get some physical. And if you want to get more leverage, because what we're offering investors is, instead of you going out and buying, maybe 1 ounce of silver at, call it $20 an ounce, if you buy shares in a company like ours, you've got our exposure to millions of ounces in the ground. And I think we've earned the confidence of a lot of investors, smart investors, companies, big investors. So, what you're essentially getting is our ability to find more, and you get leverage. So that's my takeaway message is we're located, it's size meets grade in a safe jurisdiction.
Okay. He's hunting hidden treasures there up in the Golden Triangle, Shawn Khunkhun. Dolly Varden Silver there. DV, Toronto Venture Exchange, DOLLF is their call sign in the US there if you want to hunt treasure with them. So Shawn, hey, really appreciate you taking the time. It was good for that in-depth look at the company and yourself and your perspective on why you're here in the first place. And we'll certainly look forward to keeping our eye on your activities.
All right, Rob, we've known each other for a long time, and I'm really excited about what you're doing. And thanks for having me on.